Hi guys, welcome to the Revive Stronger podcast. I'm your host as always, Steve Hall, and I'm joined today by Bryan Krahn, and I'm very excited to be with Bryan. I've been following his work for a fair while. I came across Bryan with Scott Tuzenar. Both great guys, and had Scott back on. I mean, one of the first episodes of the podcast had Scott back on, and I think Bryan has great writing, and I've interacted with him on Facebook, and he's just a very interesting character, and I think throws some interesting thoughts into the field, especially for this podcast, in which we have people who are very evidence-based and love the science, and Bryan kind of uses that in combination with his experience and his own thoughts and things like this. So I think Bryan would be someone very interesting to talk to. To give a bit of background to Bryan, he's been a personal trainer since 1997 and has a certificate of strength of he's a certified strength and conditioning specialist through the NSCA. It's just so he has 2 university degrees, but they are non-fitness areas. So I have a degree, and it's not fitness based either. So I can kind of I'm with you on that. I kind of in many ways wish I did have a fitness based degree, but in the end, it doesn't seem to have held us back. So, like I said, fitness writer, blogger, online physique coach, and in his own words, a semi-serious physique athlete. So, like many of our listeners, loves being lean, muscular, and athletic, but doesn't compete. Oh. So,
athletic? Oh, no.
It was your own words. These are from your website. So,
oh fuck! I said I was athletic. Oh yeah, okay. I'll edit that one.
Yeah, I think. If you've been like after muscular growth long enough and you don't do anything else, you don't really have any athleticism about you. So
sorry to interrupt your momentum.
That's all right.
Like, I feel like Donald Trump when Mike Pence is talking. I'm getting pumped up here. It's just anyway.
The only thing I wanted to add to that was you have 2 bulldogs that you're a father to, which I thought was it's just nice and interesting. I know Mike Israel's recently got a bulldog as well, so everyone who's fairly muscular and hench seems to be getting on that.
Well, Mike looks like a bulldog, so I think that's
true.
That's a worthy investment.
So I don't know if you want to kind of tell the audience anything more about yourself. That was just a bit of a brief background.
No, I was just laughing at your intro because my first degree is in psychology, and a while ago I went back home to see my parents, and in the house where I grew up, and I went into the bathroom downstairs, and there, sure enough, there's my degree. I had hung it over the toilet when I moved out, and my mother never really got the joke and certainly didn't appreciate it, but that's kind of what anyway. I didn't take it with me. It's still there. It's still hanging there. So at some point I'll have to clean out my psychology degree. Then I went back and got an English one. And that's been equally valuable because now I count reps. But oh well, what are you going to do?
To be fair, psychology and the writing element, they can only have helped you in the field. So I have a degree in geography with business, so I don't feel like that's as applicable.
Geography of business? Well, I thought you said geology. We used to call geology rocks for jocks. Oh, yeah. All the football players majored in geology. But all right, geography, that's good.
Yeah, I mean, I have no idea where places are. It was like human geography, so yeah, very unhelpful right now. But it teaches you how to read research at least a little bit, and it teaches you how to work and dedicate yourself to a goal. So, but anyway, to delve into the first topic. Something I loved is your perspective, and I think you and Scott talked about this on your podcast potentially, was kind of, you see these guys talking about the grind, the hardship of the gym, and how like it, as if it's something that is like, painful and and I loved your perspective, so I love you to just talk to that a little bit.
Okay, well first, the last thing I want to do is make light of like how difficult like a contest diet is. And I've never competed in the bodybuilding contest, and I've never been as lean as you. I mean, I look at you and you are like, fuck, you get amazing conditioning.
Thank you.
And so like, I'm not going to tell you about, how painful the, long prolonged dieting can be. But at the same time, having been on this planet for long enough, I can tell you that like that, seeing it as this grind and as this this painful thing that you have to do. Oh, I have to get up at 4 and I have to do my cardio, and then I have to prep all my food, and then I have to go to the gym, and oh my God, and I'm so tired. And these are all realities, and yeah, it sucks, but the more you kind of see things as this have to, you kind of divorce yourself from all of the, first the reality that you fucking chose this. Like this is something you elected to do, you opted to do because you wanted the challenge or you wanted to change your body or whatever. And you also remove yourself from just like seeing what an amazing privilege it is. Like look at what you get to micromanage your diet to the point that like you can change your body on like almost on a daily basis, especially as lean as you do. Like you get to like completely change your physical destiny, and no one else can, whether you're working a full-time job or 2 jobs or have a family, like you can control this and, make this your little passion and maybe even make this your business. Like there's all these positives attached to it. But if you only see like the shitty parts, like, being hungry and, brain fog and all the stuff, cooking and cleaning, that's my thing was always like, I would, especially in the depths of a diet, was always like the food prep and especially the cleaning after. Like that'd be like,
yeah,
I was like, fuck, I would be that guy who go, you know what? I just don't want to eat. Not because I'm not hungry, just I don't want to have to cook and I don't want to have to clean that freaking frying pan again. But anyway, like just these little things, if you jump on that train, it can quickly take you down that path where this becomes this obligation. And the bottom line is people want to do what they want to do.
Yeah.
They don't want to do what they have to do. I mean, yeah, like there's something romantic about, living, a selfless life, but this is not a selfless pursuit. Like, so if you see this as like this incredible, chore that you have to go on, you'll burn out. And you might be able to do one show or get into great shape once or twice, but you're not going to be able to sustain this for a decade, and certainly not for 2 decades and make it like part of your lifestyle. You can't live every single day in drudgery. So, I mean, I really try to like spin people out of that.
No, I completely agree. I think so you probably might be similar, but I sometimes have clients who will have that kind of mindset on it, and I kind of want to snap them out of it and be like, but this is all a choice. This is something you actually want to do. This is a positive thing. And I guess that's where some of the psychology comes in. But especially during the dark times in prep, if you just view everything like, I have to get my steps in or I have to do this cardio, it's like, no, like this is hard, but don't let it defeat you. Kind of use that as like, this isn't hard. I could do way more than this. So no, I like that perspective.
Well, yeah. And at the same time too, like we all, if you're coaching people for a living and, people are paying you for your service, like those people are intelligent, hardworking, professional people. And as soon as you start playing hey man, you wanted to do this, like I would never say that to somebody because of course they fucking know they want to do, like, I don't have to remind them of that. They see the money come out of their account every month. I don't have to remind them of that, but you just have to kind of, what I try to do is just like show them how far they've come, and just especially like, not so much the inches and the pounds and shit like that, but just like the decisions they've made. Because sometimes people, they get so, kind of focused on the processes that we all talk about. Got to focus on the process, but they kind of miss all these amazing things that are kind of happening to them, and just, kind of somewhat related to this whole thing they're going through. Like maybe, oh man, like they're spending more time with their family because they're going for walks, or they're all eating together as a family, I've had clients say, oh, I'm cooking with my wife now and it's kind of fun. And, some people get really into food tracking and they see it as a game, and like there's all these other little benefits that you just don't notice unless you kind of like basically get your head out of your ass and see everything else that's going around. So
yeah, I think
I try. Yeah.
I was just going to say, I think there's kind of for a lot of people that initial learning curve where they go through these things and it's not fun and it is a bit hard. But then once you get through that and it just becomes like a day-to-day thing. I don't know about yourself, but I've been at like weddings where people are like, and I've been in prep, I was at a wedding and people are like, how do you have the determination to like not drink alcohol and like you must be so determined. I'm just like, I don't even think about it. It's just, I'm just there enjoying the occasion. I don't need to drink.
Yeah. Yeah, like that's a level of mastery that, I'm still aspiring to, like once you don't even have to think about it, and it's just part of your natural wiring, like then you've kind of like you've reached a really high level. I don't know what the word would be, but I guess you're self-actualized as a meathead. I don't know. I still have trouble with that, especially like, I'm very much, if I get stressed, I want to eat. If I get, something knocks me off, like if I have too much work going on or I'm not sleeping well, I want to eat. And also, if I'm in a really celebratory environment, like a wedding, especially if it's one of my friends from back home, like fuck, I forget all my newly acquired programming and I want to drink. I'm Canadian, I want to drink beer, I want to swear, I want to, do all sorts of stuff. Like it's just very easy for me to get into that old habit. So in a way, I'm right in there with my clients. Like I'm just like, okay, these are these, little survival strategies you have to employ, so like props to you if you're at that level. I mean, because it's a hard, man.
No, it is. But sometimes I personally get a bit envious of someone like yourself where I almost can't actually switch off. So it's a point where I'm like, I'm so in that I can't be flexible. So I love people who can actually switch between the two. But that in itself, I think, is even like another level of like mastery.
Yeah, that's, that is an interesting point. I've never really thought of that. Like, I've always like just even though I'm still very much a work in progress, like one thing that has been really helpful for me was doing a lot more traveling. Just outside of North America and outside of like, I don't want to say civilization. That sounds terrible, but like going to Asia and stuff like that, and just seeing how other cultures eat, or going places where poverty's rampant, and just just seeing different perspectives on food, and just when food isn't as abundant, and food isn't like, it's just not a given. When people just operate differently, and it's like food is respected more, and it's just, I don't know, like I don't have the depth of knowledge to say why, but it like for me as a coach and as a small B bodybuilder, that was really, really enlightening. It's just that back here, like people focus so much on it. It's like a hockey expression. They grip the stick too tight,
right?
And they get too tense, and they don't make good natural decisions, like just in line with what their body is telling them. Like all that stress and all that hyper focus kind of gets in the way of just feeding themselves. So like when I traveled a lot, and especially when I've gone away for a long time, completely just what's forgotten all the rules, like and just not train, just eat. It's really kind of taught me what that's like again.
I guess that's along the lines of kind of the trend that's coming along right now, which is like the intuitive eating and everything, and how difficult that is to actually even contemplate thinking about doing for anyone right now who's in the countries we live in. I guess in other countries, I mean, are they even intuitively eating if they just don't have food available? It's kind of like they're just eating when they can.
That's it's not a bit of gallows humor, but you can't call it intuitive eating if you have no food around. You can't eat. That's thrown around a lot in our industry. Oh, I'm trying to learn to eat intuitively. And again, I think that's a very good aspirational goal. And it's something like I tell my clients all the time, I say, I don't track my food. I don't track my food, but until I have to, kind of thing. It's I think it's a good idea to, just get off those training wheels and see how you can fare, just, estimating your portion sizes and just, doing all those basic rules like whole foods, portion, fist palm, all that stuff, and seeing how you fare for a few weeks. And most people kind of stumble, some, freaking crash and burn. But the trick is to then go back to your rules, kind of clean up your bad habits and then try again, and, but this thinking like intuitively, like, again, that's Jedi shit. Like that's stuff you have to really, really be good at before you can before you can try that. Yeah.
No, I think it's just like how a meal plan can kind of be like a bit of a training wheels towards using a bit of a like MyFitnessPal, and then you slowly remove the training wheels, and then you might have to put them back on as you kind of are stumbling a little bit. So no, I like that perspective, and Something along the sort of lines, a bit kind of psychology based, was I had a quote from one of your Facebook posts, which I thought was really great. And it was talking about how after so many years having traveled down all the rabbit holes, I can tell you, if your goal is to largely look good naked, the experienced meatheads are the best mentors. And I wanted to kind of delve into who those mentors for you are, who you look towards, because I know off air we were talking about how kind of you really like the science. Brad Schoenfeld, Mike Israel, you love the scientists, but sometimes people can get a bit too lost within that. And then you have the meatheads, and you've talked, I know in your kind of writing and things, you kind of show a bit of love towards the bros and all of that sort of thing. So I'd love to hear kind of, who the mentors are and things like that.
Well, it's funny, like my mentors in that regard would be no one you'd have heard of. It's just guys that I've known who've been able to train consistently for 20 plus years. Because here's the thing, like the big secret, and I'm actually going to write about this, is if you work hard, like you bust your ass, you don't have to throw around an acronym like your RPE or something like that. Like if you bust your ass, relatively speaking, consistently for 10 to 20 years, and you don't take extended breaks, and you kind of keep that passion alive, you will get reasonably close to your goals. Like, I've just seen it time and time again. And so when you look at all the great physiques, if you boil down the things that they have in common apart from genetics, it's consistency and hard work over time. Like, that is the most important ingredient. So what I do is I look to people who've been able to achieve that. Like, not so much what they've been able to achieve physically, but just like who's been able to train consistently and hard for decades. Who's been able to do that, and what have they got in common? And it's just invariably it's these meatheads, and they've got this incredible passion that most of these guys will go through divorces, and they'll go through job change, and they'll go through children. Like, children turns your life upside down.
I bet. But
and all the usual things that parents dying and all the normal life stresses. They will go through all that, and they'll ebb and flow, but they'll still keep inching forward. And when you look at these guys and you figure out that their passion comes from just a joy in the process. They've reached a level that they might weigh themselves occasionally and take their waist measurements and make sure everything's in check. But even if they didn't have any of that data, they would still keep fucking training. Even if they didn't have a mirror in their gym, they'd still keep fucking training because they've reached this wellspring of motivation. And like, that's where, in my own way, where I've tried to find that in myself. I'm always trying to make improvements in my physique and stay healthy as I get older, all that jazz. But I'm always trying to channel that joy. That's just completely separate from the results. So that's the thing. Getting back to your question, like, that's what older meatheads can offer you. So they figured that out on their own.
Yeah.
And they're even as they're getting older and their bodies aren't quite the same, their skin's starting to sag and all that shit, they're still juiced about this.
Yeah, I don't know if John Meadows would be appropriate. I feel like he's maybe not that old to bring up, but
I think I'm fucking older than him, actually. I don't have to check.
I'm actually not sure his age, but I guess like Brad Schoenfeld, again, just people I know off the top of my head are kind of meatheads still training. Like Jeff Alberts is, again, not old, but he's older than a lot of the younger guys who are now doing natural bodybuilding. And he's a great character for kind of talking about longevity and how he's been able to consistently put in the hard work. So, I love that message.
And look at what those guys, I don't know any of them very well personally. Yeah. But if you look at them all, what they have in common is that they start out with a singular passion of bodybuilding, like building their bodies. And then they let it evolve into something that's bigger than them. Okay, this is another thing I'm writing about. Like a perfect example at a much higher scale than those guys. It's like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Okay, just all about building his body ever since he was like 14, and then I think he retired the first time when he's 28. So he kind of reached already the pinnacle.
Yeah.
And then he went back, whatever. But then he took those principles that he learned building his body, and he did it, and he made a switch and went to acting, still very much about building his body, like staying jacked. And then from there, though, he kind of let it go, and then it was politics, and now his stuff on gerrymandering. Like, he's always evolving, like using these same kind of principles he developed as a bodybuilder. So you look at guys like, like Brad Schoenfeld, now he's an educator, went from bodybuilding, now he's an educator and helping other trainers. And same with John, like helping so many people. And Jeff is just like phenomenal coach, working with so many people, and they're still bodybuilders, but they've let the process evolve them rather than just like kind of just competing in shows or, you know what I mean? Yeah.
No, I see that. And part of what I see, I think, is a bit of and again, we were talking about this a little bit off air. I think it's related, like the analysis by paralysis by analysis, where you get all these younger guys who are getting into like bodybuilding, into physique shows, and they're like talking about RPEs and like set volumes, and they're getting very much into periodization. It's like, and it's almost causing them to lose the process and lose that kind of effort idea, that hard work and consistency. And they're just like program hopping or whatever it might be. And I could see that being, it's very frustrating. And I know you've got some frustrations about it yourself.
Well, it's always like we were kind of talking before. Like, forgive me, RP, was that Mike Zudros?
Yeah, Mike, Mike DeSherda kind of coined.
Okay, like just, it was like a super helpful concept, and just changed programming for so many people, made it so simple. But it's always people who are kind of on the hobbyist end, or they're just kind of getting into it. They take a good idea and they run with it way too far. They run with it like past the goal line, through the end zone, into the visitors' changing room, out the parking lot. Like, there's no context in that. Like, I don't know. Like, I try not to poke fun at people on Facebook, but I recall a few weeks ago somebody was saying, I try to train with an RPE of 7 to 7.5, but some days, man, I just got to bring out the 8s, and I just don't know. I just don't know if I'm, inhibiting my recovery and my it's always my androgen levels, and I'm just sitting here going, I don't want to blast this kid because he's he just doesn't know yet. Yeah. And I can just picture whoever the gentleman was who coined RP just going, no. Like, these are all just helpful tools to But anyway, and I can remember clearly when I was kind of, still I was very much a wannabe bodybuilder. And I remember I had this job where I had this opportunity to frequently meet like really good physique athletes. And I remember going for lunch with this one gentleman who's already in his 40s. And I remember him just peppering him with questions about, okay, man, like, because, sometimes I know you should train heavy because that's like what keeps the muscle and that's what builds the density. And I think I even fucking said, I don't know if I said sarcoplastic hypertrophy. I don't know. But I also know you have to go for a pump, and what happens when you start dieting. And I remember he was just sitting here going and just trying to enjoy a meal. And by the end of it all, he was just like, just relax, take a step back, follow a good program, focus on progression, find a way of progressing and focus on that, and stop stressing about all the details, you know? And I remember feeling like years later thinking about like, oh man, I was just way too keen to have lunch with this guy. But,
No, it does. The thought that springs to mind is like, you just don't get it. And I think there's quite a lot of the younger people who are trying to really grasp it and get it, and overcomplicating things that don't need to be as complicated as they are. And we get the RPE scale, which is an incredibly useful tool, and Mike Israel's MRV and the volume landmarks. Again, I like them. They're great conceptual tools, but people get very like, okay, my MRV is exactly this for this body part, and they try and program exactly for it, and then it's like they're not listening or gauging progress. They're just looking at this one thing and getting hampered down in that.
Yeah, and I've fallen kind of victim to that. And even as a coach, there have been times where I've been a little bit too hot and horny for my own program, when you have to always look at the feedback you're getting and go, like, I know like Mike's put out tons of work saying, okay, the MRV for deltoids, I think he'll talk about the frequency like 4 to 6 times a week, and that's but then you can't just apply that to everybody. You use that as a guide. I think this can work, but then you have to always factor in context. Okay, I'm working with Mrs. Jones. She's 55 years old. Okay, so this isn't going to be applicable to her. Yeah. And on a less absurd level, like, even some people just respond better to intensity, and some people respond better to volume, and some people respond better to variety. And even if it's not a physiological, this is where I fucking want to plant my flag. Even if it's not a physiological basis for it, if they think they respond better to it, they just, and then you've got to kind of cultivate that, because they're buying in. So if you got some buy-in there, and like, okay, there's other ways you can, like, if someone always says, you know what, as soon as I train heavy, man, I get burnt out and I get sick. Even if you're kind of in the back of your mind going, you're full of shit, But if that's what they really believe, yeah, you can kind of deprogram their thinking and stuff like that. But, maybe let a prof do that. Like, why not kind of take what they're giving you and just, make it better? Just say, okay, if that's the way you feel, I can work with that. Then you kind of slowly bring them back to reality. Yeah. Like I do, I probably do this at least once a week, where someone comes in with all this things that they know work for them. Yeah. And I could spend my time just shooting holes in them, or I can kind of like take what I can agree with and work it into my system. And then, maybe slowly indoctrinate them into a different way of thinking, or basically it's coaching.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I love that. And I think, to put it into something more familiar for maybe listeners, it's kind of like having a t-shirt with the Nike tick on it versus a t-shirt with just a blank t-shirt. Whereas the one with the Nike tick, you're like, oh, that's a higher quality, better t-shirt. Potentially even is. I didn't mean to pick Nike. I should have picked a different brand, seeing as you've got the tick on. But like, I know I buy into brands. Like if I have like an Apple Mac, then I'm going to think that's going to be better than like a cheaper brand. Whereas it could be the same one, it's just the branding on it. Like a coach could just be there, and you trust the coach and you believe in them. So anything they give you, you've got a lot of belief behind it, and that goes a long, long way. Just like you're speaking about, I think to then take that, and I've done the same with clients who maybe they love protein, so they've got a hugely high protein intake, and I'll use that. I'll be like, right, we can use that, and we can just change and modify a few things, maybe slowly taper it towards what I think might work better. But oftentimes, like they know their bodies. There's individualization, like we were talking about. It's a huge thing that people don't respect.
Oh, totally. Like it's funny is you bring up Apple, and I was just pulling my hair out. Like, what happened to Apple that I have a dongle? I have to turn my office upside down to find a dongle so I can use my wired headset anyway. It's just, I remember they've jumped, the dongle was their shark jumping moment, I tell you. But yeah, like people come in with not only from like with different goals and different limitations and different training histories. They come with so much mental programming that I've had just a lot more success just finding where we have a common ground, and just rather than arguing everything. Like if I read one more thing about fasted cardio and all that, like just if someone wants to fucking do it fasted, like why try to undermine them right away? Like that if it fits their schedule. Yeah. If they get up, maybe it allows them to get in cardio before a work day, and it creates a shorter eating window, if you get what I'm saying. Like why try to like throw that under the bus? Mm-hmm. Like, well, anyway. So that's the first thing I always look for is how I can take their individual context and fit my plan to it, rather than always fit them into my plan. Yeah. Like someone asked me what my program was. I'm like, my program? I'm like, fuck, I don't know. Like I do know, like I had a guy help me just make a bunch of training templates, mm-hmm. Because everyone starts off with a basic, especially the weight training stuff, you start with a basic template, mm-hmm. Maybe it's according to like the goals or the days per week or stuff like that. But every single one I've had to modify so much. I just have clients. I don't even have, I don't have a single program or a single template. I just have a shit ton of files, So.
No, that's exactly right. It's like, I mean, talking about evidence-based practice again, science is like the foundation, and then you move from there. So you're creating, and likewise, I do the same. I create a template that I think is going to work well for the client, and then you check in, see how they're doing, you evolve it, and you individualize it over time. And that's what everyone needs to do, and for themselves, and not get kind of lost with things. I definitely think that's a great approach. And actually, this kind of brings me to a point I wanted to touch on, which I liked. It was one of your posts again about kind of a different way of programming for hypertrophy, just changing angles, grips, foot position rather than complete exercises. And I don't know if you want to touch on that, but maybe just overall philosophies for muscular hypertrophy that you have for your clients, what you kind of look towards.
Yeah, that was another big lesson that I kind of learned, that because I was like you mentioned in your intro, I was a on the floor trainer for fucking years, and then went away from that, especially when my wife started traveling for school, and then got into writing and still obviously still training myself and stuff. And then as I got into online programming, I don't know where I was going with this, but one thing I noticed at the train was people always say, oh, you get a new program. I want a new program every month. Well, coaches started offering, you get a new program every month. Mm-hmm. And this kind of got drilled. It was an interesting phenomenon. It kind of got drilled into the industry that because you get a new program every month, therefore new programs every month are the way to go. Yeah. Okay. And I started offering it. And then I realized, like, I don't do this with anyone I'm coaching. Like previously, or certainly not with myself. What I do is, and I've since changed my business, and this is how we roll now, is you figure out someone's goal, their lifestyle, their context, all that shit on the front end. Mm-hmm. You design the program, and then at first you make all sorts of changes, because there's invariably, oh, I can't do this, or I don't want to do this, or whatever. And every exercise is just a tool, unless it's powerlifting, you have to, So you make those necessary changes, you settle in, and then you fucking work the program. You get better at it. So if you're doing the same program for 16 weeks and you're still getting an extra rep here and there, you're getting better pumps, you're doing it faster, it just feels – it's the beautiful thing about hypertrophy training. The frustrating thing is that it's not always on the logbook, but sometimes it just feels like it's fucking working. Yeah. If you're getting that from it, you don't want to change it. So my thing is you work out the bugs, and then you focus on progressing. Yeah. And so, but you still want to have a little bit of variation in there. So that's where things like, going from like a supinated dumbbell curl to a hammer curl, or just like little slight changes that adjust, the biomechanics. Even if it's not, even if it's just a mental thing, if it increases your engagement, you're gonna increase focus, and that's what is gonna lead to progress. So. And then there's like mitigating long-term injuries, things like I'm fucking old. So if I do too much, reverse grip work, like brachialis specific stuff, my elbows start to bark. So I work in a lot of plan variation for that. Ditto with hinge movements. I'll rarely do the same hinge movement twice in a row. Excuse me. Or like, or if I'm planning to be on a plane, I won't squat or deadlift before I get on it or after I get on it. Just little things like that. Like you work variation in that way. But very rarely will I be like, okay, it's week 4, change things completely. Like I don't think I ever do that. It's like, okay, what worked? What didn't work? What can I build on? Like what's obviously not working? Yeah. We'll just shit can that entirely. So
I think it's a kind of a bit sad, although the internet's probably proliferated it a little bit in terms of like the monthly changing of programs, because it's easy to satisfy people in many ways, because it's like, oh, I've progressed with that for a bit, now I can progress with this, and they're kind of getting that false progression with things where they're just kind of learning it, really they're not actually progressing. It takes a good coach, a well-educated coach, to realize that it is only tweaks that need, like the overall principle of the program isn't changing. You might just change a bit of a repetition range, a bit of an exercise here or there. And I can talk to I love squatting, but varying the actual squat that I do, whether it be like a back squat to a front squat, slightly closer stance, or like even Smith machine squats I fell in love with. That has been like a game changer for recovery and fatigue management. Mm-hmm. So I can definitely kind of speak to that.
Oh, totally. Especially again, when you start working with people who are a little beat up or they're just, because when someone's new, like, fuck, everything works for them.
Yeah.
You know, like it's just, that's the one area where if you're working with someone brand new, you just put them on a good program, you know, and just let them kind of get used to the exercises. And a good, well-designed program is going to work. But when someone is a little bit further along and they have more limitations, or they're kind of past that initial like everything's easy stage, you got to get a little bit more hands-on. And it's not, everything doesn't follow a flow chart. You know, sometimes I put people on, I design programs for people and I look at their progress. I'm like, fuck, I got to do that program. And other, you know, and other times you put them on something great and it just doesn't work. And then you have to figure out, like, why, like, what's, you know, what went wrong.
Awesome. And I think you have posted on this as well, and it relates to what we're talking about. It's kind of the best books of learning how to make gains, and like, if you do know those books offhand, if you have any kind of just take homes that you have from those books that you learned that you kind of have applied to your training and worked really well.
You know, I'm a really big fan of getting a lot of different sources of influence, but just even stuff like, I have books that are 90% bullshit. Yeah. You know, but I just love them because I find value in them in things maybe not so much with the programming, especially like I'm speaking directly more like to like old like bodybuilders who write books. Okay. You know, I don't want to name names, but you look at it and go, okay, this is kind of bullshit. Like, this will never work. But then you look at the physique and you're like, all right, well, dude's doing something right. Yeah. So what I like to do is I'll sometimes buy stuff from just complete, like the shittiest weeder books, ghostwritten by who knows who, and I'll buy them and I'll just look for stuff it's kind of like doesn't like, not that I laugh at, like, just stuff that makes me raise an eyebrow going, like, how did you reach this conclusion? Yeah. And that's, you know, so it's not like, oh, he says do, you know, concentration curls to build the peak for the biceps. Yeah, I know that's bullshit, but you look for things that are a little bit more subtle that, you know, it's in the rituals that people do. That's where you see a lot of kind of subtle genius that you can take away and apply to coaching. But to answer your question, like, I think you need a strong, you don't have to be a freaking doctor, but you need a strong, like, basic understanding of anatomy. And then you need some good standard programming books, like anything by Ripito, like, you know, Starting Strength, Practical Programming, like, these are just great books. You know, Brad's work obviously is, you know, it's pretty much unimpeachable. So I mean, these are great, like, foundational things to kind of get. And then from there, though, if you really want to spread your wings, like, it's so important to, like, I love training with big jack meatheads. Even if what they do won't work for me and I don't have the real estate and all that to compete with them. Again, I look for things that go beyond the sets and the reps and the programming to influence, like what can I take away? You know, like, I remember a story. You know John Romanello?
Oh yeah, I know John.
Yeah. He's telling me when he was living in Venice, he was training at Gold's, and you know, he's John. He's always on his phone, and he's farting around on his phone, and he looks up, and Will Harris, who's I think competes at 350 pounds or 300 pounds, looks over at him, and he's like, if you're going to be on your phone while you're sitting on the hammer strength back machine, he goes, you're going to do a set for me. And Will put him through a set. Like John said, he almost freaking died. It was like this trip, like 10 drops set on a hammer strength machine. And it just, you know, part of it is he's having fun with him, but it's just like, it was kind of a kick in the ass that he needed at the time, just because, you know, John had his heart as a bodybuilder, and he's kind of like lost, you know, he lost it there. And I love putting myself in those situations. Like if I can go to a gym and train with the biggest juiced up freak show, I will do it because I will learn something, you know? So I think everyone should train with people who are just exceptionally further along with them. Get coached by someone who's an excellent coach, and just buy in, and just, even if it's different than what you know, and just see how they kind of take you through things. What else is, like, that's probably been my biggest teachers.
No, it's,
And just, yeah.
I was just gonna say it's really interesting. I've recently been watching a lot of Tom Platz, just because he's an interesting guy, and his quads, I mean, speak for themselves. And I mean, I do some of the same things as you do. Kind of, I kind of like, I'm a bit. I'm not sure how I feel about how he's doing those leg extensions, and but they just, I mean, some of what they do is they just go to places that most people don't go. They push themselves in ways that other people don't. And the only thing I often find myself feeling with that is I don't know how they don't burn out. And I guess I don't know if the drugs play a role there. And as a natural, you might have to kind of tone it down a little bit. And it's finding that balance between the two, because I know Brad's done lots of work on like training to failure and things like that. I don't know if you've got any opinions on kind of where the sweet spot lies.
Well, yeah, like definitely the drugs play a huge role, and certainly genetics. I mean, I remember reading something from Tom where he said, you know, the greatest legs probably of all time, and he's like, people are always asking you, he said this, he goes, people are always asking me about my squatting, how I squat, how much I squat, how often I squat, how did I build my legs? And he's like, I could have just rode a bike really hard. And he goes, and then I would have had very developed legs. He goes, I just find it, you know, people should ask me, how did I build my arms, you know, and how did I build my shoulders? Because the point being, like, if you're from such blessed genetic stock, what you do is just, as long as you're working hard, it's going to fucking work.
Yeah. And
then you throw in the recovery agents, and it's just like, programming kind of flies out the window. You know, it's still important, but this is not as important. So as someone who's natural or just from very, you know, kind of average genetic stock, it's not so much, look how hard he takes his set. I mean, that's part of it. Mm-hmm. Or, you know, look at, you know, his exercise selection. It's the biggest takeaway is the approach to the set. And it's funny, like I go to all these different gyms and I never judge people by what they do, and I certainly don't judge trainers unless they're doing something that's cockamamie. But I always watch for that point of intention. Like when someone approaches their set really intentionally, like that is kind of the missing link. And you'll find that these people who are really exceptionally developed, drugs or not, genetics or not, they have that gear that they get into. And again, it's not so much doing 30 reps when they should have stopped at 12. It's just, even if they're just doing those 12 reps, they do them with intention. And, you know, not necessarily perfect form. It's not that. It's something, I wish I could enunciate it better. It's just a level of focus, you know, that is so necessary, especially with hypertrophy, especially when you're trying to like coax your body out of its, you know, proverbial comfort zone. You need to get to that spot. And I just think that we've oversimplified it a little bit. We think that, that's just working super fucking hard till you like have an aneurysm. It's like, no, that's not it. You know, it's not even necessarily going to total failure. Mm-hmm. It's just taking that target muscle and exhausting it just to the point where you've done the job, you know, and then maybe you try a little bit more, maybe not. And when you allow yourself to kind of develop that skill, then now you're on track to listening to your body. And now you can be like, as soon as you pick up a heavy set of dumbbells, you're about to do, I don't know, lateral raise, you'll be like, you know what? I just don't have it today. You know, you'll just, before you even do the set, you're like, I just don't have it today. I'm going to do something else. I'm going to do sets of 20, you know, or as soon as you put that barbell on your back to squat, you only have an empty bar on and you're like, you know what? It's not going to be there. By the time I get to 315, it's going to be garbage. Mm-hmm. So I'm gonna leg press and single leg squat, you know, but you'll never get there unless you kind of find that level of focus. And I think that's what the truly great people have. Mm-hmm. And the really, really great ones have the genetics and the drugs and all that jazz, but it's that level of focus that you have to develop.
No, I really like that, because the intent, the focus is something I've definitely learned, that kind of seeing intermediate stall out, or you see the general population who are in the gym and just going through the motions, they don't have that intent and that focus, and they won't get to the advanced stages within their lifting careers unless they develop it, because you can't lift heavy weights without it, let alone kind of even developing your calves if you just jump on your Achilles heels. You just like, oh, I did my sets, I'm done. When you actually focus on it, you give every single set intent. I think that's an absolute game changer. So I love that.
And the thing is, it all comes back to what we started talking about, an hour ago, and it's that you'll never develop that respect for that focus if this is always something that you have to do.
Yes.
Like, fuck, man, I gotta go and I gotta do fucking chest and back today, man. And I really gotta do this first and do that, and I gotta make it home, but I'll try to squeak this in, and I just want to take some time off, or I want to do this or that. Like, you'll never, because you'll get to the gym and you'll be just like, oh, here I am. Okay, here we go. I'm tired. I'm on low carbs. Okay, here we go. Just get her done. Yeah. And I admire your work ethic and punching the clock and all that jazz, but you will not reach that level of focus if you don't have that, like, all right, I'm here, man. I've been looking forward to this. This is something that I've chosen to do. This is something I fucking love doing. And now I'm going to take each set and I'm going to just commit to it. I'm going to get everything I can out of it. And so much of training, is what you get out of it beyond the physical. Like when my life is upside down and my kid's keeping me up and I got all kinds of stress, like when I can go to the gym and have a really good focused session, it gives me so much more than what I've put in. Yeah. It's just like, it's beyond therapy, and I have much respect for therapy too. I do that too. But if I didn't have this in my life, I don't know I'd be doing something else, I guess. Yeah. Hopefully, but I just, it's given me so much more than I've given it. And it's beyond just like, 4 sets or 5 or whatever, macros,
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. Yeah. And it does the same for me. And I think it gives a bit of credence to those people who have their kind of weird pre-workout rituals and things, because they get in the zone, they get that intent before they go into the gym, and then they get into their workouts and they're not kind of chatting and dilly-dallying and on social media. They're doing the work and they've got intent. So no, absolutely loved that. And I want to thank you for coming on the show and spending some time chatting shop with me. And hopefully the listeners have enjoyed it. If they do have any questions, hopefully you'll happily have them question you, or like drop some comments below. I don't think we've put anything out that's particularly questionable. And I just want to say a massive shout out to yourself. And if people want to make sure they will kind of find your work, your writing, I know you've got your website, bryankrahn.com. Is that the best place they can reach out to you? You're on Instagram, Facebook and things. I'm on this. That's my website. I am on Facebook. I'm getting slowly more acquainted with Instagram, but I've been told that I put up too many pictures of my dogs and my kid. And they're like, why don't you put up any training photos? And I'm like, well, I train alone and I'm not that guy who's like, here, take my phone, take a picture. But I'm working on that. But yeah, so. Now we're going to hound you for them. Yeah. They can get me, I'm easy to get a hold of. Awesome. Yeah. I'll make sure that's all linked below so they've got that. Yeah. And if you do ever do more podcasts with Scott Tuzanar, I'm sure the listeners will be interested in hearing those as well. What was the podcast? It was Metabolic Masterpiece, was it? No, what was it? Or did you name it? Shit, I should know this. It's funny because before we got on the air, I was like, I got a podcast with Steve Hall. And he's like, Scott's like, yeah, remember we're supposed to be podcasting sometime? I'm like, oh yeah. So you'll be getting back on that, and I'll make sure that's linked below anyway if we can't remember the name. I think it's called the Modern Musclehead, and I think Scott changed it to the Physique Mastery Pod. I don't fucking know. Scott, we'll link to it. Yeah, I'll link to it below, or search Scott Tuzanar or Bryan Krahn and it will come up. So no, that's fantastic. I look forward to those episodes because that's kind of more of what we've been doing, but you do it with Scott. So yeah, thank you very much, and we'll catch you guys soon. Yep, thank you.